Welcome to the latest Writer's Life video. First thing you'll notice is that I'm recording in landscape for the first time. I'm hoping this works. I'm not quite sure where I should be looking into. I think this might be as difficult a transition as the move from bootcut jeans into slim fit jeans a decade ago. I think I'll take the same approach. Back in 2009, I just persevered with the slim fit jeans. I got there in the end until they just felt a natural fit. So as I've been saying, or as I was saying, I've just come back from a run. I don't regard myself as a serious runner. I'm really just trying to improve my fitness, get it up to a reasonable standard, seeing as I find getting to swimming just too awkward, don't want to be getting up ridiculously early just to get a lane, the slow lane, by the way, and then find myself, blitzed in the pool by other swimmers. So I'm not a natural runner. Mentally, I find it difficult. I find it quite boring, monotonous. Apart from the left nipple chafing, I certainly don't feel like a runner. I don't have any of the right gear. My shoes aren't the right running shoes. I'm getting pains in all sorts of places, probably because I'm not wearing the right footwear. But there's a breeze, a nice breeze in South London this morning, and this was probably the most successful run I've had, and I think my fitness is improving just a little, so that's encouraging. Also, to break the monotony, as I've said before, I'm running on grass because my surgeon said I shouldn't be running on tarmac, so I'm running on grass. I'm doing laps. Found a nice patch of grass, I think 400-meter laps, 350 to 400 meters. And I do 5 laps. So as I say, I'm really starting from a long way off, but it is monotonous. I've started running anti-clockwise, which makes it easier. The first leg of the grass is the most treacherous, and I'm getting that out of the way first. So that's helped. But also I was speaking to Mickey Boyd, who's a very committed runner. The guy's doing 10K runs. I'll throw that in there for his ego. He's got a massive ego. And he was telling me that when he runs, what my old friend does is he recalls old football matches that he's played in. So I thought, that's not a bad idea. So what I try to do with each lap is recall certain memories from my life. And hopefully, those will get me to the end of each lap until I got the running out of the way. And before I go into that, I should say I am even encouraged that my fitness does appear to be improving. My nurse told me that swimming is much better for your fitness than running, and that's all well and good, and I can swim non-stop for an hour, but it's not useful. I don't travel. I haven't been anywhere for 12 years. I'm not going to get on a ship. There's going to be no need for me to swim. London is a dangerous place. Who knows when you might need to run? I need to get my fitness up, So where was I? I've been trying to take Mickey's advice then. So what I did today, I employed these visual exercises on my first lap, and I've got the list written up and on a post-it note stuck to a lamp that you can't see. The first thing that I recalled was my aunt's old dog, Toby, who I discussed yesterday in a Writer's Life video about my troubled relationship with dogs. I do remember that when the dog came in from a walk, regardless of whoever had walked it, my aunt used to keep a cloth by the patio doors, and she would pick it up and wipe the dog's behind. Now, I didn't think this at the time, but now, several decades later, I'm thinking if that was a single-use cloth, that would be fine, Wipe the dog, chuck the cloth. But no, that cloth always stayed there, and my aunt would always pick it up and wipe the dog as it walked in. And I'm talking, wipe the dog. I don't need to say where, where. And whenever the dog came in, she would just pick up that cloth without thinking. It wasn't like she'd laid the cloth on, by the patio doors in a certain way so she knew a certain side of the cloth, a certain patch of the cloth was clean. So that was troubling me. And I'm assuming that given that the dog was with them for 14 years, that cloth would have got washed occasionally. Did that cloth go in with my cousin's clothes? So that was the first lap. The second lap, my uncle's 80th birthday this weekend, having a celebration milestone birthday. Brought to mind my aunt's 70th birthday. Well, actually, it was her 71st birthday. And I remember for her 70th, and as I've said before, I'm not the best giver of presents. I'm a writer. If you're having a milestone birthday, I'm never going to be the guy that gives you the best present. But turned up for what was my aunt's 71st birthday. So, the quality of my present wasn't at the level of what I'd got at the 70th. The year before, and my aunt came to the entrance of the restaurant as I turned up for her 71st and just whispered to me, just pretend it's my 70th. There's a few people in there who think it is, and obviously those people thinking that it was my aunt's 70th had got a milestone present, a present that was more expensive than she would get for her 71st were they to come the following year. And I thought, this is disappointing, because I've got her a cheaper present this year because she's turning 71. But now she's going to be unwrapping this. People are going to be looking on. They're going to say, oh, look at what the nephew got her for her 70th birthday. That's a bit cheap. I couldn't say anything. I was going to say, look, she's actually 71. You should see what I got her last year. I can't actually remember what I got her for her 70th, but it was definitely at least a fiver. Okay, looking at the third thing on my post-it note. The retail interview I had in June 1992. I don't know what I was doing interviewing for a part-time job in retail in a clothes shop, because to this day I can't fold clothes. But the interview went fairly well. It was a small shop just off Oxford Street, or on Oxford Street. And then as I exited the interview, I went through the wrong door and I found myself trapped in their shop window with shoppers just looking to see what was going on. I couldn't find my way out. I could hear lots of sniggering on the other side of the door, and I just thought, I've blown it. Even if I get this job, I can't take this job, because I will always be the guy who exited the interview through the wrong door, and ended up in the shop window. I could have stayed there 5 years until every member of staff who'd been there when that had happened had left. But, the chances were, as newer staff came in, existing staff would have used that amusing story to, break the ice with a new member of staff. So there was no way I could take that job. Let's have a look at number 4 on my list. Communion wafer. So this was on the 4th lap. So as a kid, I wanted to be a priest. Doing my communion, my first communion was a big deal for me. When you do your communion for the first few years, God, doing this in landscape does hurt your arm. I don't have a selfie stick. Excuse me, might be an idea to get one at some point. The first few years you do your communion, you cup your hands to take the wafer in your hands. As you get a bit older, as you hit puberty, you want to be like the bigger kids. You start taking the wafer on the tip of your tongue. The mid-80s, mass hysteria concerning AIDS, and suddenly we were being told you had to take the communion wafer in your hands. And I wonder if that kind of impacted on my love for the church a little, because although by then I didn't want to be a priest, I was still going to church every week. I was still taking confession regularly. But the last time I took a communion wafer was Christmas Eve 1987, and I'm just wondering whether that somehow connected to the AIDS hysteria. Okay, for the 5th lap, I actually employed 2 visual exercises, seeing as I was starting to struggle a little. The first, my dad always maintaining that Tony Curtis, the actor Tony Curtis, was the world's best looking man. I don't know why this was important to my dad. I couldn't see it, even as a kid. I'm not saying Tony Curtis wasn't good looking, but I just thought that's a hell of a claim to say this guy, there is no one else in the world better looking than him, that this guy who just happens to be an actor is the best looking guy in the world. And that led to a lot of arguments in the bedsit. Might have just been easier, seeing as there were enough arguments going on without the Tony Curtis thing, just to have said to my dad, you know what, you're right, Tony Curtis, there is no better looking guy in the world than Tony Curtis. For the final half a lap of my run, if anyone is still actually watching this, the rope of hope. My dad had a big fear of fires, as I'm assuming most people do, but the wiring in our bedsit was terrible. There were a couple of girls in our street, West Indian girls. We used to play with 2 young girls, I think about the age of my sister and I, who died in a fire one Saturday night. and I was about 6 when that happened. And it was not uncommon to, if you lived in London at the time, I'm assuming if you lived in any city in the UK, to see burnt out houses. And I think that did something to my dad. We went to Bon Marsh. It had unsettled in him. He bought a rope. We lived on the top floor. He would run fire drills, tying the rope round each of our waists, and it never progressed beyond there. I don't think he had any idea how he would get 4 people, including himself, out of the window. I don't know if he kind of, watching the old Batman and Robin TV episodes from the 60s when, you'd see those clips of them scaling a building and talking comfortably, like it was the thing that everybody could do easily. I don't know if my dad thought that we might be able to do something like that, but there was no plan to get us out of the bedsit in the event of a fire. And these 6 recollections got me through 5 not so difficult laps today. And I've got to say, I'm pleased about that. Do please click the subscribe button and enjoy your day.